Mic out, please.
Hello.
Yeah, sure. Um, right, while this is being...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Before we actually start, would those sitting at the back of the Shamiana like to move up so that, we can all sit together? It's very disconcerting, I think, to see white chairs from the stage. It just looks a lot emptier than it is. Thank you so much.
Right, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Our session, as you know, is on Rajat Gupta and his fantastic story. And we'll
Hello.
to that in a bit, although you must be aware of it. But first, let me introduce my panelists. To my left is the author of this book, Fallen Angel, Sri Shundipandep, who is ex-IIT Kharagpur, ex-IIM Calcutta, which is also my alma mater. He's 23rd batch as opposed to my 31st. And he shifted to journalism, right? And has been, among other things, the managing editor of Outlook, the editor of the Financial Express, and the founder editor of Open. He's the author of a book called The IITians, the story of an extraordinary Indian institution and how its alumni are reshaping the world, ironic, and is currently working on a novel, other than this book, of course, which is The Last War. This is, of course, not a novel. This is his account
Well,
on
actually,
Rajat Gupta.
The Last War was published.
This is an old book. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, Anita is to my right, and she was born in Malaysia and shifted to the United States subsequently. She's rather well known as a journalist. She spent 18 years at the Wall Street Journal, where she won the Overseas Press Club Award for her coverage of the mergers and acquisitions boom in Europe, and the New York Press Club Award for her reporting on the near death of the hedge fund Long-Term Capital. I'm just reading this out, as you can see. But in 2008, she became the London bureau chief for Forbes. And is that where you're currently based, Anita?
I contribute to Forbes and New York Times.
Right. And you're based out of London at the moment. Can you hear Anita, everyone?
Not very well. Is the mic not what? Okay.
Right. Okay. And this is Anita's book, The Billionaire's Apprentice. We'll kind of start. The way I'm going to do this is I don't want to be talking much. I have read both of these books. They're brilliant because although they're chronicling the same story, they are written in very different styles. And therefore, both these panelists have something unique to bring to the table for the same set of questions. So I'm going to actually ask a question, go to you first, Shandipan, and then move on to you, Anita. Why it was a compelling topic for you, and methodology, if any, that you used that you'd like to talk about.
Okay. About 10 or 11 years ago, I was researching a book on the IITs, the Indian Institutes of Technology, and their alumni. And in the course of that research, I met about at least 50 highly successful IITians in various fields. And I met Rajat Gupta several times, both in the US and in Delhi. Now, when I started writing the book, one thing struck me. I had met highly successful people. In the sense, I had met Vinod Khosla, who was at that time possibly the world's most powerful venture capitalist. I had met Victor Menezes, who was vice chairman of Citigroup, Nandan Nilekani, Jairam Ramesh, who's an union minister now, etc. Purnendu Chatterjee. The one person who I couldn't figure out was Rajat Gupta. Everybody else I spoke to, at some point they opened out. They let their armor slip because they realized that, I was talking about their life in, I, he kept every commitment, spoke to me at length, completely down to earth, answered every question.
Hello, hello.
When I looked at my notes, I realized I knew nothing about what sort of a person he was. He was either a completely perfect human being, or he had built a completely perfect, impenetrable wall around him. That impression stayed with me. And as a journalist, I had met hundreds of people, interviewed hundreds of people. This was one man I couldn't understand. Many years later, when this scandal, came out in the public, it was like a seismic wave which swept through the Indian corporate world and among IIT alumni and all that. And I was sitting with a friend. I wasn't thinking of a book. We were just discussing it. I was sitting with a friend and telling him that Rajat is the one guy I met for that book who I didn't understand. I didn't know who he was. Either he had a perfect armor or he was a perfect man. And my friend Pranab, he said, there's a book in this. You should write this. He gave me the idea. So then I started reading up on the net, following up, etc. I knew some of his friends who had stayed with him in that IIT Delhi hostel. I got in touch with people. And it was, of course, difficult to do it sitting in India. And Indian publishing economics being what they are, I couldn't travel to the US. But the internet had a wealth of information, and I just did it sitting at home and trying to talk to people. Most of them, unfortunately, did not want to talk, or they spoke only on the condition of anonymity. Almost every friend of Rajat Gupta I tried to speak to either refused or said anonymous, though I told them that I wasn't out to do a hatchet job. And all of them seemed to be in denial. None of them believed that he was guilty. That's the way it happened, really.
Right.
It was because I couldn't understand this guy. So
Right.
I ended up writing this book.
Anita, about your decision to write about Rajat Gupta, how, what made you do it, any specific methodology you want to talk about? Because the way these books are researched is quite vastly, it's quite different from each other, which is why it's such an interesting read, reading both of them. I really didn't feel I was repeating the story at all. They're really very different to read.
My book didn't really start off as a quest to tell the story of Rajat Gupta. It was October the 16th, 2009, and I was sitting in my glorious flat in glorious Holland Park, London. And I got a call from a friend of mine, a hedge fund manager in New York, and he was almost breathless in his excitement. He said, you can't believe what's happened. And I said, well, what's happened? He said, well, Rajaratnam has been arrested, but this guy, Anil Kumar, this guy I went to Doon with, he too has... And at this point, I didn't even know who Anil Kumar was. And my friend said, look, this guy's a real straight arrow. He's a brilliant director at McKinsey. He, godfather of outsourcing. And there's no way he could have done this. And over the next few days, my friend fed me some tidbits that would suggest that Anil Kumar was in fact innocent. When the feds came to arrest him, he fainted. And his defense lawyer, in the week after he was arrested, went to the prosecutors and said, you've got the wrong guy. The man you're looking for is actually Anil Kumar, the famous Indian guitarist. What Anil Kumar, the famous Indian guitarist, would have, giving corporate secrets to a hedge fund trader is beyond me. But there was sort of a great sense of disbelief that Anil Kumar was caught up in this crime. And of course, 3 months later, the whole idea that this was a great travesty of justice was shattered when Anil Kumar in open court declared that he was guilty of giving insider information to Rajaratnam. So then I re-marshaled my resources and decided just to tell a riveting story of how a brilliant Indian, in this case Anil Kumar, got caught up by a rather boorish Sri Lankan trader. And in April 2010, I was given a little bit more ammunition because there was a small story that appeared in the Wall Street Journal that said that Rajat Gupta was being investigated in connection with giving insider tips to Rajaratnam. I was in Delhi at this time reporting on the story. No one in Delhi believed there was any truth to this. But having worked at the Wall Street Journal for 2 decades, I knew if the Wall Street Journal was printing a story like this, there probably was a shred of truth. And so I changed course and I started spending all my time focusing on Rajat. I took 2 trips to Delhi, and then I came to Calcutta, where I visited Rajat Gupta's cousins, literally knocked on their doors, found their addresses, sat with them, and asked them about Rajat's early life in Calcutta. And then, of course, I ended up covering both the trials, the Raj Rajaratnam trial and the Rajat Gupta trial, which led to a wealth of information that produced the book we have today.
Right, thanks. You got me thinking about the story, and there's been quite a lot of comment and writing about Preet Bharara's role. Now, he's been accused fairly recently, even in the first post, of being, MATA, more American than American. Now, there are obviously several views to this. One is that he's a guy doing his job, and he's been put there as the face of the ethnicity to deal with a problem, so that you can't be accused of race. And there is also the issue of perhaps overzealousness. And what's your view, Shodhipan?
Well, after the Rajat Gupta case, Preet Bharara has recently been in the news again because of these charges brought against Devyani Khobragade. So again, people are talking about racism and this more American than American thing. I really don't know about that, but there's another point. In 2008, the American stock markets collapsed, leading to a global economic meltdown. Not a single person who's been directly connected with a huge loss of wealth of common people across the world has been prosecuted, has gone to jail, has been charged with anything. Among white-collar crimes, insider trading is the easiest crime to prosecute and get a guilty verdict on. The guys who caused the global meltdown, who dealt with these completely meaningless mortgages and subprime bonds, etc. All of them are in their corner offices paying themselves jaw-dropping bonuses. Nothing has happened to them. Bharara has not gone after them at all. So whether more American than American, I don't know. But surely he went for the soft targets. Whatever the crimes of Rajaratnam or of Rajat Gupta, they certainly did not contribute to the misery of millions of people across the world and to the whole, global economic crash. I mean, Rajat Gupta, for example, didn't make a penny for himself through the whole thing. And whatever money Rajaratnam did, that did not affect anybody else other than his own lifestyle. And most of the money he spent anyway.
Anita, although I did have a question. I know he never made a penny for himself, but was there the desire to make a fair bit of money? Was the desire there and perhaps it didn't take off? Or was he just being philanthropic? What are you trying to say here?
I definitely believe, I don't know, Anita, the evidence seemed to suggest that Rajat was certainly looking at significant wealth coming his way in the future by going into a joint venture with Rajaratnam, which would be a huge global fund. He was certainly looking at benefits accruing
So
to
there
the
is no
future.
money yet, is what we can say. Yeah.
And also, just to interrupt for a minute, in 2008, virtually everyone lost money in the stock market. So the question is not what he made, but how was he able to curtail his losses? How much less did he lose as a result of the information he gave Rajaratnam?
Right. Very, very pertinent. But Preet Bharara, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who say Preet Bharara is a representative of the U.S. government, he's just executing their strategy, fundamentally don't understand the U.S. system. U.S. attorneys, and that's what Preet Bharara is, are fiercely independent. And there's a famous case back in 2006, which Preet Bharara was actually involved in. President George W. Bush at the time fired 8 U.S. attorneys, and it was regarded as being very politically motivated. The U.S. government, namely George W. Bush, did not like what these U.S. attorneys were doing. And Preet Bharara was actually the lawyer hired by Democratic Senator Charles Schumer to investigate whether these firings were political. So there's a real difference between the U.S. government as the State Department and the U.S. attorneys. And so when this whole Devyani episode exploded into full view, while the State Department would have been consulted before Preet Bharara decided to arrest Devyani, there is no way the State Department could have actually told Preet Bharara, you can't do this. That would have been a cause furor in the States and would have sparked another investigation, much like the one that happened under George Bush in 2006.
Right. I'm going to next just read a little bit, just about a minute from your book, Shondipan, where you've quoted excerpts from Jack Bauer's interview to Fortune magazine, which is when he was quite old. Jack Bauer is the gentleman who founded McKinsey.
Marvin Bauer.
Marvin Bauer, I'm so sorry. 24. So sorry. Anyways, but here we are. So I'm just going to read this out, and I'm going to ask you to comment on this. So he's talking about whether McKinsey is growing too fast or moving in the wrong direction. Now, have we grown too fast? Have we begun to think too much about money because we've got so much coming in? People who make a lot of money get to thinking about having 4 homes to keep up, or maybe they want to buy a yacht. If an individual consultant has to make a professional decision on the spot and he has too many obligations, I worry that he's likely to make a decision to attract a client who shouldn't be attracted. Now, given the fact that under Rajat Gupta's watch, we had Enron, we had Swissair, we had Kmart, and all of these imploding, would you say that this changing definition of success worldwide perhaps, and therefore perhaps also in McKinsey, had a lot to do with what followed thereafter? I mean, you just got more and more, it was like a frog in a kind of gradually boiling water. You don't realize how deep you're into it. And you're getting more and more into this very addictive cycle of growth or money at all cost, or shareholder value at all costs, and therefore you start taking really wrong decisions.
Well, certainly Rajat Gupta, as global managing director of McKinsey, was completely different from the managing directors who preceded him and the 2 managing directors who have come after him. Rajat certainly went for extraordinary exponential growth, which was never part of McKinsey's broad strategy, even part of McKinsey's values, as laid down by their patron saint, Marvin Bauer. Under Rajat Gupta, McKinsey, I think, opened some 26 new offices across the world, aggressively entered China and India. The number of partners more than tripled, and revenues also almost tripled, I think. But of course, we must understand that these were also heady days, in the sense it was the time of the dot-com boom, and dot-coms were clamoring for McKinsey advice, but they didn't have the money to pay McKinsey, so and the McKinsey partners had to take a call on that. What do we do? And they did something which was completely against everything that McKinsey had believed in till then. They started taking equity stakes in their clients' companies. Sometimes they linked their fees to the rise in the performance of their shares in the stock market. At which point they lost the arm's length distance that a consultant is supposed to maintain with the customer. The Enron thing, of course, the Enron collapse is, of course, the biggest disaster on Rajat Gupta's watch. And very strangely enough, not a single McKinsey official was questioned. Although Enron was one of McKinsey's biggest clients, paying them at least $10 million per year, and certainly McKinsey would have been involved in advising them and, telling them which way to go strategically. And it is difficult to believe that the McKinsey consultants who spent half their time in Enron office would not have known about all the creative accounting that was going on. But certainly it was a huge break from the McKinsey tradition, the Rajat Gupta years. And if you look at what Rajat Gupta's successors have been saying, and